When you think of the devil, what do you see? You probably picture a menacing figure with blood-red skin, a pair of sharp horns, cloven hooves, and a pointy tail. Maybe he's got a goatee and is holding a pitchfork, ready to prod the souls of the damned in a fiery underworld. This is the image we've seen in countless paintings, movies, and cartoons. It's the ultimate personification of evil, the great adversary of all that is good. Except, well, that's not what the devil actually looks like, not according to the Bible, anyway. In fact, for a book that's supposedly about the ultimate battle between good and evil, the Bible is surprisingly vague about its main villain. The horned, pitchfork-wielding demon king is almost entirely absent from its pages. So, where did our modern image of Satan come from? If he's not the red-skinned Lord of Hell, then who or what is he? And how did we get the story of Christianity's greatest antagonist so spectacularly wrong? To find the answer, we have to unravel a story that spans thousands of years, multiple empires, and a fascinating evolution of an idea, transforming a minor celestial public servant into the source of all evil in the universe. Our story begins not with a rebellion in heaven, but in the pages of the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible. And here, the first surprise is that the word Satan isn't really a name, it's a title. The original Hebrew term, ha-Satan, literally means the adversary, or the accuser, and his job isn't to be evil. It's to be a kind of heavenly prosecutor, or a divine agent of quality control, working on behalf of God himself. He is a member of God's divine council, one of the Bein Elohim, or sons of God. The most famous and detailed example of this is in the Book of Job. In this story, the sons of God present themselves before the Lord, and ha-Satan is among them. God points out his faithful servant Job, a man who is blameless and upright, but the Satan is skeptical. He basically says to God, "Does Job fear you for no reason? You've blessed him with wealth and family. Take it all away, and he'll curse you to your face." He is not acting out of malice, but out of a cynical duty to test the integrity of righteousness. He is challenging the premise that goodness can exist without reward, and God agrees to the test. He gives the Satan permission to inflict suffering upon Job, to strip him of his wealth, his children, and his health. Throughout this entire ordeal, the Satan is not a rebel. He is an agent, acting only within the boundaries God sets for him. He is a functionary in the divine bureaucracy, a necessary, if unpleasant, part of the celestial court. We see this role again in the book of Zechariah, where the prophet sees a vision of the high priest Joshua standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. Again, his role is that of a prosecutor in a heavenly courtroom. He is not a demon, not a fallen angel, just an adversary. And what about the most famous snake in history? The serpent in the Garden of Eden who tempts Eve. In the original book of Genesis, this is just a snake. A cunning, talking animal, but just an animal. Early Judaism never made the connection that this serpent was Satan. That idea would only emerge hundreds of years later as the character of the devil began to dramatically evolve. For the writers of the Old Testament, evil wasn't embodied in a single cosmic figure. Evil was a human problem, a result of the Yetzer Hara, the human inclination towards wrongdoing. The world's problems came from human disobedience and the actions of rival, hostile nations, not from a singular, supernatural source of all evil. So, for centuries, that's who Satan was, a function, not a figure, an adversary, not the adversary. So how did this celestial prosecutor get demoted and turned into the ultimate villain? For that, we need to look at the period between the Old and New Testaments, a time when the Jewish people found themselves under the rule of powerful foreign empires. This period, from roughly the 4th century BCE to the 1st century CE, was a time of immense political and religious turmoil. The influence of foreign cultures, particularly the Persian Empire, introduced new ideas into Jewish thought. The dominant Persian religion, Zoroastrianism, was profoundly dualistic. It depicted the universe as a grand cosmic battlefield between a supreme god of good, Ahura Mazda, and an equally powerful spirit of evil, Angra Mainyu or Ahriman. This idea of a fundamental, cosmic war between a good deity and an evil one was a powerful new concept that began to seep into the region's worldview. It provided a compelling explanation for why there was so much suffering and injustice in the world. It wasn't just human failure. There was a powerful, malevolent force actively working against God's creation. During this time, a new genre of literature also became popular, apocalyptic writing. Books like the non-canonical Book of Enoch told elaborate stories that weren't in the official scriptures. It's in the Book of Enoch that we get the first detailed account of a rebellion in heaven. But it isn't led by Satan. It's led by angels called the Watchers, captained by figures named Azazel and Semyaza. They descend to earth, lust after human women, and teach humanity forbidden knowledge like warfare and sorcery, corrupting the world and leading to the Great Flood. This story of fallen angels of a heavenly mutiny became incredibly popular and laid the groundwork for Satan's future character development. He was about to get a backstory. By the time we get to the New Testament, the transformation is almost complete. The world of first-century Judea was a dark and anxious place, living under the oppressive rule of the Roman Empire. The idea of a cosmic evil entity, a ruler of this world who was responsible for the world's corruption, resonated deeply. Satan was no longer a title, it was a proper name, and he was now the unambiguous enemy of God and humanity. The most famous encounter is the temptation of Christ. After his baptism, Jesus goes into the desert for 40 days, and Satan appears. He is no longer a subordinate asking for permission. He is an independent king, a rival power. He offers Jesus all the kingdoms of the world and their glory, claiming they have been given to him. This is a direct challenge to God's authority. Satan is now the tempter, the deceiver, the prince of demons. His character has solidified. The authors of the Gospels and the epistles retroactively applied this new identity to old stories. Now, the serpent in the Garden of Eden is Satan. The forces opposing the early Christian church are seen as the work of Satan. He is the ultimate source of sin, suffering, and opposition to God's plan. This new, villainous Satan reaches his final, terrifying form in the last book of the Bible, the Book of Revelation. Here, he is a cosmic monster, the great red dragon, with 7 heads and 10 horns. He is explicitly identified as that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He wages a literal war in heaven against the archangel Michael and his angels and is defeated and cast down to earth. On earth, he gives his power to the beast, the Antichrist, and unleashes a final, apocalyptic assault on creation before being thrown into a lake of fire for all eternity. The journey is complete. The celestial attorney from the Book of Job has become the multi-headed dragon of the apocalypse. The Bible had finally created its ultimate villain, but there's still something missing. Where are the horns, the hooves, and the pitchfork? For that, we have to leave the Bible behind and enter the world of art, folklore, and religion's greatest tool for conversion, syncretism. As Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, it encountered a vast pantheon of pagan gods and nature spirits. Converting people is hard, and one of the most effective strategies was not to erase the old gods, but to demonize them. The early church effectively ran a smear campaign against its divine rivals. Take the Greek god Pan, the lord of the wild, shepherds, and rustic music. He was depicted with the legs and horns of a goat and was associated with nature, fertility, and unrestrained, chaotic revelry. For the orderly, ascetic early church, this wild, lustful figure was the perfect template for a demon. His goat-like features, the horns and cloven hooves, were grafted directly onto the growing image of the devil. Suddenly, Satan had a body, and it was the body of a pagan god. The pitchfork likely came from a similar source. It's a dead ringer for the trident carried by the powerful Greek sea god Poseidon, or the bident of Hades, the ruler of the underworld. These were symbols of immense, non-Christian power, and by giving them to the devil, the church rebranded them as tools of evil. This image was cemented in the Middle Ages. The fear of the devil became all-encompassing, and art was the primary way to communicate theology to an illiterate population. Artists let their imaginations run wild. In his epic poem The Inferno, the Italian writer Dante Alighieri created one of the most enduring visions of hell, but his Lucifer is not a fiery king. He is a grotesque, three-headed giant, frozen up to his waist in a lake of ice at the very center of the earth, his great bat-like wings flapping to create the freezing winds of the ninth circle. He is pathetic and impotent, eternally chewing on the traitors Brutus, Cassius, and Judas Iscariot. A few centuries later, the English poet John Milton, in his masterpiece Paradise Lost, gave the devil his modern personality. Milton's Satan is not just a monster, he is a complex, charismatic, and tragic anti-hero. He is a proud, eloquent, and rebellious angel who utters the immortal line, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." Milton gave the devil a motive, a psychology, and a voice that has shaped our perception of him ever since. From then on, the devil was no longer just a symbol of evil, he was a character. So, the image of the devil that we know today is not a biblical revelation. It is a collage, a mosaic assembled over thousands of years. It has the job description of a Hebrew prosecutor, the cosmic ambition of a Persian evil spirit, the backstory of a non-canonical Jewish legend, the monstrous form of a Greek nature god, and the tragic personality of an English epic poem. Each era, each culture, has added another layer, projecting its own fears, anxieties, and ideas about evil onto this ever-evolving figure. The story of the devil is ultimately a story about us. It shows how our understanding of evil has changed from a simple human failing to a cosmic war to a complex psychological struggle. The Prince of Darkness, in all his forms, reveals less about the true nature of hell and far more about the enduring darkness that resides in the human imagination.